Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time, another installment of my Why I Love series. And this time, I'm talking about the supernatural spectacular Ghostbusters. Who you gonna call for a good time? I think I'm gonna call Ghostbusters. This film is one of my all-time favorite movies. As you can see, I've already reviewed this film multiple times already on this channel. And it's a big part of my childhood. I definitely grew up with the film. But it's not just nostalgia as to why I love this movie. I think this is a genuinely, legitimately great film that has held up really well over the years. And there's a reason why it's considered a classic to so many people. There's a reason why it was just recently inducted into the National Film Registry. So it's being preserved by a film society. So that isn't an honor that's reserved. That isn't an honor that every film gets, folks. Only very few individual, very special cases happen when it comes to films that get that honor to be preserved for many, 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 many years to come as a part of a historical society for film. So, Ghostbusters isn't just some film. It isn't just some movie that was made in 1984 and made a lot of money. Ghostbusters is a phenomenon. Ghostbusters is a iconic film. It's an icon. The logo itself is iconic. Even to people who haven't even seen the movie, it's iconic. So I'm going to try to do the best I can in hopefully a short amount of time on explaining my particular reasons why this film is so great and why I love it so much. So let's get started, shall we? Here we have reason number one, the perfect storm. Ghostbusters is one of those rare, once in a lifetime type films for me where lightning struck and they were able to catch it in a bottle, and it excelled at all three really important facets of film production, of filmmaking. And what are these facets, so to speak? These facets are directing, writing, and acting. For me personally, what makes a good film, what makes a great film, which makes a movie that's as timeless as this movie is a film that excels at all three of these aspects. And Ghostbusters does that and then some. It's one of the best films I can think of when it comes to excelling at all three of those aspects. You got a great screenplay by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd, which a lot of the really hilarious lines of dialogue, the quotable lines of dialogue from this movie, a lot of them were actually improvised by the cast, by Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis. But the writers, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, they ended up enabling the script to have places where the actors can have fun. Because the script and the story was strong enough that there was a lot there that you could do a lot of improvisation. You could do a lot of jokes, and it would still be a strong, interesting story. For one, the idea of the Ghostbusters themselves was really unique, and it still is. Yes, there were some other films that tried to do the whole ghost catching thing before this movie, or there was a TV show, Ghostbusters, and so on, but they didn't take this particular approach, which was a little bit more scientific, a little bit more somewhat logical. It was more science fiction, it was more sci-fi than it was fantasy. And that was a really inspired choice with the whole stuff with the proton packs, with the ghost traps and all of that. And that's and a big reason why the film is so chock full of technobabble and why the script is so full of this sort of logistical science fiction approach to this fantastic, just really over the top concept is because of the writers, Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd especially, he's a very intelligent man, and he had actually studied a lot of this stuff that he was talking about in the film. So, yeah, and it's just the story itself. It's a really nice blue collar story of these blue collar guys who are written as characters, but the performances make them feel genuine. I never really felt like Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis and Bill Murray were playing these characters. I felt they were these characters. They became these characters. In fact, so does everybody else in the cast. And that's another reason why it's a perfect storm, because the casting is so great. But going back to the writing, it's just got a really great structure. It's got a good setup. You got a bit of a prologue, sort of build up with these characters, with these scientists, introduce us to them in the beginning of the movie, the stuff in the library and so on, and the stuff with Bill Murray shocking the people and stuff like that. And it does a great job building the chemistry between our lead characters and setting up a reason for them to become Ghostbusters. And then it builds up the other characters, Dana Barrett, Louis Tully, and so on. And as the film keeps going, it builds up more and more and more. It's just a really well-paced film, and a big reason why is because of the screenplay. It's a really great script. It's got a cool story. The idea of these blue-collar scientists who were played by some of the best and brightest comedians of that time, and they team up and they bust some heads in a spiritual sense. And it's something that was unique and fresh and different for 1984 and still stands out as something unique and fresh and different. These group of these funny guys who team up, and it's not all jokes. They team up, they kick some ghosts, they saw, they kicked some ass, and they saved the world. And it's a simple script. It's pretty straightforward, but that's another reason why it's so good. Is because it is simple, and because it's so simple and straightforward, it's able to excel at its story instead of convoluting it with all these other random different things and so on. I mean, there were some deleted scenes that were deleted out of the film that I've seen that definitely hurt the film a little bit, with the stuff with Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray playing hobos and so on. So it wasn't perfect from the start, but it was pretty close. It's a great script. There's a reason why so many people and so many writers have tried to recreate this script, because it is so great. Now you have the cast, which is the other element of the perfect storm of all the important facets of filmmaking, where you just have this just phenomenal cast. You have Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis at the peaks of their careers, in their primes. I mean, you could not ask for a better cast. And what's crazy is it could have been different. It might not been as good. I don't think it would have been as good if for example, Batman, Michael Keaton played Venkman, or Egon, or Ray, because I believe it was, yeah, Keaton was considered for Venkman, and I think for maybe Raymond Stantz. And I could not see anyone else playing Ray other than Dan Aykroyd, and I can't see anyone else playing Venkman other than Bill Murray. These were perfect roles for these actors. So much so that they just easily just became these characters, and it wasn't there was no trouble whatsoever. It felt so natural. And that's another reason why I love this film, is these three guys, and including of course Winston, played by Ernie Hudson, and this is like his first big role, and he plays like he's the everyday Joe guy. He's the guy who will do anything you say as long as there's a steady paycheck in it. And he was kind of like the audience. It was in a way for the audience to kind of see what it's like to be a Ghostbuster, because you could just put in your application and you can be part of the team. And he did a great job too. I've always liked Ernie Hudson's performance in this and in the sequel. And originally supposed to be a bigger role, Eddie Murphy was the one they wanted, but he turned it down for Beverly Hills Cop, and I think that's a good thing because it enabled Eddie to play Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, and then it enabled Ernie Hudson to have the opportunity to get a big breakout role that enabled him to get roles like his character in Leviathan, which I really like him in. So, yeah, because before this, he hadn't really done that much. He did like a supporting role in Space Hunter, but this is definitely the role that helped him get his foot in the door in terms of getting bigger roles in Hollywood and beyond. And it was a nice character too. He had one of a really memorable line, Ray, next time when somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes. So I thought he was every bit as memorable as the big three, and it's not just the Ghostbusters. The actors that play the Ghostbusters who are great in this cast. It's the supporting cast, or Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett is definitely more of a part of the main cast, but she's phenomenal too. I don't think she's been sexy. I don't think she's at her sexiest here. I don't think she's been hotter than she ever was in this. She's so hot in this. I'm absolutely jealous of of Rick Moranis, not Harold Ramis, but Rick Moranis. I'm so jealous of Rick Moranis because he got to get a long, juicy kiss with her. And but I've always had a crush on Sigourney anyway, ever since seeing Alien and stuff like that, and of course this movie. So, but this was a big role. This is a big role for her because this is something different. She was well known for being a serious actress before this. She didn't really do anything that was comedic. And this is a big risk for her, and she did a great job. And she really had great chemistry with the rest of the cast. And of course, she would go on to do great work in Aliens after this, and of course, go on to do great work in Ghostbusters 2. So she's another big reason why this cast is so great. Uh, like I mentioned earlier, Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis as Louis Tully. Is more of a supporting role, but he definitely stands out. He's a lovable nerd. Rick Moranis was a last-minute replacement for John Candy, who originally wanted to play the role of Louis, and he wanted the character to have like a really thick German accent and like walk around and carry around like two big dogs. And the producers were like, "This is completely unnecessary." And so John Candy was like, I'll turn it down. So then they had to find a last minute replacement. So they found fellow SCTV alum, Rick Moranis, who's also a great improv comedian. Uh, yeah, so I mean, you had SNL alums working with an SCTV alum and Rick Moranis. And of course, you have Annie Potts, who plays Janine, who was I personally feel was one of the first really. They kind of was kind of a progressive character before this Ghostbusters reboots and its so-called progressiveness. She was she didn't take any shit. She even when Bill Murray might have tried to talk down to her, she'd say things like, "I've quit jobs better than this." She was a no nonsense gal, and she had great chemistry with Harold Ramis. And originally, it was supposed to her and Egon were supposed to have a little bit more going on with their relationship, but that kind of got cut, along with a lot of other stuff in the script, but including more work for Winston, who was originally supposed to be like an Air Force demolitions expert. But anyway, yeah, Annie Potts is great. She works well with the cast too. Uh, William Averton as Walter Peck, one of the most memorable film assholes, and so much so that even William Averton has said that after this film's release, people would actually pick fights with him because Walter Peck was such a pecker that people just thought that he was Peck, and they were just pissed at him. I mean, this is a character that's so obnoxious that it got Egon heated. And Egon is not the guy who gets upset so easily. And then I love that. where it's like, this explosion is a direct result of it. Your mother! It just, I could go on and on and on and on about this cast. It's an excellent cast. Everyone works really well with one another. They all have great chemistry with each other. Um, and they're all incredibly talented individuals. They're all great actors, and they're given a lot of good material to work with in this movie. And you can tell that they had a lot of fun doing the film. And in turn, you have a lot of fun watching it. Then we get to the directing, which is the final facet of what makes a really great, memorable film for me. The directing by Ivan Reitman. Ivan Reitman before this had done really hilarious comedies like Meatballs and Stripes, but this is a big film for him. He had a big budget to work with. There's a lot on his shoulders, and he knocked it out of the park. He hit a home run. And this was not something he was used to. He had not done a big film like this before. Stripes and Meatballs were kind of small films, in comparison to Ghostbusters, which was in essence a summer blockbuster. So it was one of those films that there's a lot riding on it, and he had to deal with a lot of different effects that he had never dealt with before in the other films that he had done. He had to deal with all these different elements and all these different things, and he did a phenomenal job. And you could see the passion that he had for this film permeate throughout the picture. You could see it. You could almost feel it, that he just had so much passion for this production, that it was something that he really wanted to do and really do well. And in interviews, Ivan had expressed interest in doing a horror film. He wanted to do, that's something he hadn't done before, and he wanted to do it, and that shows here. This has some really scary moments in it that are genuinely horrifying. The stuff with the terror dogs, the cab driver ghost, which scared the shit out of me as a kid, so much so I always like covered my eyes whenever I was watching the movie. Like when I was like, when I knew the cab driver ghost scene was coming, and I'd be like, oh, it's coming, time to close my eyes. But now I can watch it and I just love it because it's a great sequence. It's a great effect too, and that's another reason why I love the film, and I'll get to that later. But but yeah, it's just one of those things that, yeah, Ivan Reitman, this was not easy. It wasn't easy for him to do this, to make this film look and feel like the supernatural spectacular that it is. His willingness to also work with these actors, to give them ample opportunities to add their own things and add their own jokes to the film, also made it as great as it is. Ivan made a deal with Bill and Dan and the rest of the cast where he was saying, all right, if you have any sort of ideas or lines that you want to do, that's fine, but I'll make a deal with you. You let me shoot the scenes the way that I want them, and then I'll turn on the camera and you can do scenes the way that you want them. And then we'll get together and we'll decide which one works the best. And that's what happened. Most of the jokes, most of the memorable lines of dialogue in this film were improvised. And I said that earlier, but I have to make that clear because that's impressive. That's really, that shows you how talented this cast and crew was. And a large reason why that was able to happen, a large reason why we have so many memorable lines in this movie, like, for example, let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown. That kind of stuff was improvised. I don't know exactly for sure if that line was improvised or not. I know a few lines weren't, but a lot of them were. And that added to the unique dynamic and the unique energy that the film had that just could not be duplicated, because you could tell that these actors were really excited to be a part of this film. You could tell that this is probably the happiest I've ever seen Bill Murray in a movie. You can tell he is loving it. He is loving it. He's having a great time. And it's because Ivan allowed his actors to be able to bring their own takes and their own lines to the film. If he didn't do that, the film would not be what it is today. And we probably wouldn't be talking about it as much as a lot of people do. including myself, if it wasn't for Ivan having that opportunity for the actors to take the ball and run with it for themselves. So yeah, just such a phenomenal cast, and the screenplay is great, and then the great direction by Ivan Reitman. These are all three really important elements to a successful, great, memorable movie, and Ghostbusters has all three of them. And that's why I call it the perfect storm. Now we get to another reason why I love the movie, and that is the visual effects. I love the visual effects for this movie. They are really, really, they're great. They were kind of under a lot of pressure. They were trying to do things that had never been done before, so that was also really daunting. And Richard Edlund, who had worked on Poltergeist 2 years before and worked for ILM, he had broken off and created his own company called Boss Films. And so it was his own effects company. And Ghostbusters was one of the really big projects for him. So his new special effects company was given the job of creating the ghosts and a lot of the other effects for the film. And this is stuff that had never been done before. And he and his crew just did an amazing job. They were it's something that I think is kind of underrated, considering, people look at the facts and like they're great. They think like, oh, they just kind of look at that like, oh, it's an afterthought or something. This is not easy. This had never been done before, folks. Some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff. So they used their heads, so to speak. They thought of whatever popped in there and worked with it, and they had just really amazing results. They did a great combination of practical effects as well as optical effects. A lot of the ghosts were actual puppets that were then filmed and then were touched up optically to make them appear like they were ethereal, like they were see-through. There was a lot of money put into a lot of this stuff. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man suits, because the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was essentially just a guy or a couple guys in a suit on a miniature set. And these suits cost 20 grand each, and they destroyed like at least a couple of them. So, there was a lot that went into the effects in this film. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was almost cut out of the movie because the studio had doubts that the audience would react well to it. But thankfully they didn't, because the audience loved it. And rightfully so, because it was such an absurd, unpredictable moment. I would love to go back in time and see this film in 1984 in theater and see people's reactions to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, because you don't expect it. It's so absurd. It's like, it just popped in there. What just popped in there? Look! It's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's just one of those just so absurd. It's so silly, but it's funny. And it's also scary at the same time, because it's like, yeah, it's silly. Yeah, it's stupid. But this Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is going to kill us. This 100-foot tall Marshmallow Man is going to destroy us all. So, yeah, it's silly, but it's also scary. Because, come on, if that happened in real life, we would all be shitting ourselves. But yeah, so the effects, absolutely a huge reason why I love the film so much. Even the simple stuff like the look of the proton beams, the stuff where, of course, you have the clouds all get like all dark and stuff like that. They use it with cloud tanks. They just have water and they throw some dirt in, or they throw some other materials in it. They film it, see what happens, and they get creative with it. And it's shot with real materials, so it looks real. The matte paintings too, which is an absolutely 100% underrated aspect of this film. That a lot of these backdrops you see in this movie that are like buildings and stuff, and the cityscape and the skyline, they're matte paintings. And I gotta give the matte artists a really big, huge round of applause for their hard work on this film. Because, yeah, a lot of it's matte paintings. I know. Before CGI and green screen, there was matte paintings. And this film is one of the best films I can think of when it comes to its use of matte paintings. So yeah, there's just so many different aspects to the visual effects that just work so well. The stop motion effects of the terror dogs, they may look kind of fake now, but there's a certain charm to them that I love. The practical makeup effects of the terror dogs, they look fun. They look real. They look like real demon dogs from hell that they managed to get on the set. Um, yeah, just definitely a huge reason why I love the movie. And another reason why I love Ghostbusters is the production design, which is this is also another underrated aspect of the movie. The hotel, all of this type of stuff. Dana Barrett's apartment is a set. It's a set, folks. It's a set on a soundstage. They built that. And then the skyline you see in the background is a matte painting. This is the kind of stuff that goes unnoticed. You don't think about it because you don't notice it. Stuff like the costume design, the look of the Ghostbusters, their jumpsuits. Uh, that's something that looks great and it's an iconic look. But it can easily be overlooked. This is stuff that can easily be overlooked, but adds to the greatness of the film. The 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 tech, the design of the proton packs and the ghost traps. They're iconic. They're unique. They're unique to the film. They're unique to Ghostbusters. They have a memorable look to them. They have this nice sort of realistic homemade look that really appeals to me. And so yeah, I just wanted to throw those things out there real quick. And then we come to another reason why I adore this film and why I love it so much, and that's the music. It's not only the soundtrack, which I love, with the iconic theme song by Ray Parker Jr., which is, it, I will never get tired of that song. Anytime I hear it, it just automatically puts a smile on my face, and it, it's 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 memorable for a reason. It's a really fun dance song and has been for decades because it's one of the best I can think of. It fits the film so well. It's memorable. It's catchy, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. And there's other songs on the soundtrack that work really well too. For example, Alessi's "Saving the Day," which I love every bit as much as the Ghostbusters theme song by Ray Parker Jr. It's got a great riff to it that's memorable, and it's just a great song. It fits these heroes perfectly, and it adds a lot of epicness to the end of the movie, to the climax. When they're getting ready and the ghost tries to knock them down, and they get back up. It's like, "You want to play rough? All right, we'll play rough." And then you have this awesome backbeat in the background. It's every bit as memorable as the theme song, as Ghostbusters with Ray Parker Jr. And you have other songs too that you hear briefly in the background that I like "Hot Night" by Laura Branigan, the "Cleaning Up the Town" song, which is a lot of fun, by the Bus Boys, that plays when you first see the Ecto-1 in action. And there's another thing for the production design and the art direction. The car, the Ecto-1, one of the most iconic and memorable cars ever seen on cinema. It's gotta give that a shout out. That's right up there with the Batmobile and all these other famous movie cars like the DeLorean. For me personally, it's every bit as iconic. It's got this unique look to it that's just so uniquely Ghostbusters. There's a lot of things about this film that are just so unique to this movie. And you can't say that about every film because there's a lot of other movies that I like. They could be like, yeah, I like that, I like the scene, but that's not really unique to the film. I've kind of seen that done before. This isn't one of those movies. This is a very unique film in the way that it approaches things and the elements that it shows us. It's got a great story, and a great story never gets old, and especially if it has great characters. And if it's executed as well as it is in this movie. So then we go back to the soundtrack. Yeah, I mean, "Magic" by Mick Smiley. That's the song that plays when the spirits all break out of the containment unit and fly around the city. Um, that's a very memorable song. It's very creepy and weird and surreal. It really fits really well with the images on the screen. And it's not only the soundtrack, by artists that's great in this, it's the score by Elmer Bernstein, which is Ghostbusters. When you hear this score, you don't think, oh, it sounds like this other score by this for this other movie. It's not like James Horner's scores for 48 Hours and Commando, where if I hear the Commando theme, I'm like, that sounds exactly like 48 Hours. No, this sounds uniquely Ghostbusters. You hear this score and immediately you realize that it's for the film Ghostbusters. It's not for any other movie, it's for Ghostbusters. It's got this really nice mix of zaniness and dread and some sort of a little bit of epic sort of tone to it, as well as a little bit of horror elements. It adds a lot to the film that I think is definitely underrated. I don't think the film would be as great as it is without the score by Elmer Bernstein either, because it adds a lot of emotion and weight to certain scenes that wouldn't necessarily be as powerful without his score. So, yeah, I don't really pretty much everything. Pretty when I think about reasons why Ghostbusters is a great film, reasons why I love Ghostbusters, is pretty much everything, really. It's a perfect storm in every crucial facet and element of filmmaking, but it's also does a great job in all these other elements: editing, cinematography, sound design, the sound of the Ecto One siren. That is an iconic sound. And that's not something that was already created. The sound guy didn't just record some siren off of some old ambulance, and that was it. No, he had to take like a jaguar growl, mix it with some other stuff, bang some things. He had to invent that sound. And that when you hear that siren, automatically Ghostbusters pops in your head. And I keep using the word unique because I can't think of any other word to describe a lot of this stuff, because it is a sound that you don't hear in nature. It is a sound that you didn't hear before in any other automobile. This is a sound that was created specifically for this film, and it's a sound that is associated directly with this movie and with the sequels and directly with the franchise. How many other films can you think of have an iconic siren noise? I can't think of any, really. That's how great this film is. So, and then you have of course, another element that a lot of people take for granted: the logo. This is a logo that is every bit as iconic as the film itself. It's one of the best bits of simple advertising I could think of for a movie. The No Ghost logo is awesome. It's iconic, it's simple, but it's elegant. It looks great. It looks great in a hat. It looks great on a t-shirt. It's one of those things that, once again, then caught lightning in a bottle, but with the logo, with the poster. I mean, with the logo for the movie. Like, how many other films can you think of that created an iconic logo for the movie? I mean, Batman has a great logo, but that's for that logo already existed. That's from the comic. Ghostbusters is a logo that didn't exist before. Dan Aykroyd, one of his friends, was like, he asked one of his friends, like, hey, can you help us come up with a logo to help advertise the movie and to put on the shoulders of our uniforms? And he sketched up the No Ghost logo, and then a guy who worked for Coca-Cola, who actually designed a lot of memorable advertising campaigns for Coca-Cola, he fleshed it out and gave us the logo that we know and love today. So yeah, I just had to throw that out there too, because wow, I didn't really stop and think about it. But now when I do, I'm like, that's another reason why the film is so great, the logo. But anyway, I don't know what else to say. I really don't. Ghostbusters is great. It's one of the best films I personally have ever seen. It's one of the greatest films of its genre. It's been on top 10, top 100 lists, and that's for a reason. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you don't love it like I do, that's fine, to each their own. But there are plenty reasons why I love this film, and I hope I have detailed most of them. There might be some that I might have forgotten about because it's Ghostbusters. I mean, this is a movie that has so many memorable quotes in it that it's almost impossible for me to recount them all. And it's probably the same when it comes to all the other elements that work really well with this movie. I might have left something out. And if I did, well, I apologize. But I hope I did the best that I could anyway to show you guys in detail, or at least in somewhat of detail, the reasons why I love Ghostbusters so much. But anyway, as usual, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later. See ya.